Welcome to the Leadership Lab podcast, where we're developing the heart and soul of leaders. My name is Jeremiah.
And I'm Bianca, and today's conversation is the language every leader speaks. Our language is so important if we're going to be effective. When I was in middle school, my family and we moved back to Saipan, which is my home island.
Okay.
And I pretty much just grew up in the States, and so by the time I went back to the islands, the way I spoke was kind of defined. My accent was defined. It was just normal. And when I got there, I couldn't speak Chamorro, which is my home island language. And I didn't have the islander accent. And I remember going into middle school and kids making fun of me. And they were like, why do you talk like that? And I'm like, why do I talk like what? And they're like, you talk so American. And I felt like an outsider for a little while, that I wasn't able to connect in a real way with other islanders because I just talk differently.
Yeah.
And I know that as leaders, sometimes we can have this disconnect in the way that we speak to one another, and language is so, so important. So today I want us to dive into this conversation that the language that every leader speaks is action.
It's action, because when you're a leader, you get things done. You lead people to accomplish a vision. There's something that's happening. And so leaders must understand that they speak this positive action, this driving force, moving things forward, getting things done, moving a team from one place to another. When you're not a leader, you're really not speaking that language. And so a lot of times, some people who may be in a position of leadership may cease actually leading people because they start getting distracted by all the things that are trying to grab time and energy. Instead of actually getting things done, they're getting distracted and they're not really moving things forward.
Yeah, and a great leader will see things that are needs and holes that need to be filled, and instead of getting distracted or stepping back or shrinking back or blaming someone else, a great leader is going to step up and take action and say, what do we need to do here? How do we fill this need? Who can I recruit? Who do I talk to? They don't just accept things how they are, but instead they move things forward.
Yeah, they bring change. That's what leaders do. They lead change. They lead the charge to make a difference to something. So if a leader sees something that's not being done and notices it, that's the cue that leader could get a vision for and then actually start leading people to change it. Because anybody could just see a problem. It doesn't take a leader to see a problem. Right. Anybody can see a problem and point it out and say, look, that's wrong.
Right.
But it takes a leader to actually institute something, a system, a team that's going to bring about change. It's actually going to change that environment.
And it takes some personal responsibility. It says, you know what, I'm going to step up and I'm going to do what it takes. And Jesus did this when he was leading his disciples. He didn't just let them delegate all this responsibility. Like, oh, well, there's a problem. Someone's going to have to figure it out. Jesus called them out on it. When he was preaching and there were crowds, the disciples wanted to send them away so they could go find food because they knew they had to eat. The problem was they needed to eat, but there's too many people, there's no food. And Jesus called them out and said, no, you feed them. And he stretched them. They didn't even know how it was going to happen, but Jesus was not going to let them delegate just because there was a problem that arose. And this is where we've got to look inward and say, okay, am I up for the task?
Yeah.
Because it's a lot of work.
Yeah.
I mean, when you see a problem, it's easy to say there's a problem, but it's a lot of work to say, I'm going to commit to making this a better situation and bringing change, because I know I'm going to have conversations with people. I know I'm going to have to recruit people. I'm going to have to train people. I'm going to have to make infrastructures. I'm going to have to do emails. There's so many layers to it. And a great leader is not scared of a challenge.
That's good. And so the leader speaking this language of action. It's this language of doing something. It's a language of making a difference. It's a language of, man, like there's a challenge ahead of me, and I'm not going to shrink back from it or just kind of stare at it. Somebody's got to fix it. Man, I'm going to get involved and I'm going to do something about it.
Yeah.
Here's languages that leaders don't speak. Leaders don't speak the language of complaining.
All right.
They just don't complain about stuff.
Right.
You know, there's some people, they just go through their lives and they see problems and they just rehearse those problems out loud. that's never going to do anything for you. If you're
Yeah.
talking about a problem, you're talking about the solutions to the problem. You're working
Yes.
towards it. That's how leaders approach those things. Leaders don't speak complaining. They don't speak gossip either.
Right.
Leaders don't speak the language of gossip.
Yeah.
Well, it's just like, oh yeah, I didn't like how they did that right there, and I didn't like how that little situation was working out there. And did you hear what happened? I mean, it's meaningless. It's pointless, and it drives you away from the end result that every leader should be driving towards, and that's accomplishing something together. Gossip doesn't bring unity.
Right.
It doesn't bring anybody around a common idea, and so leaders don't speak the language of gossip, and leaders also don't speak the language of status quo.
Yeah.
We've always done it like that, and that's how it's always going to be. No. We're gonna make some changes. We're gonna improve. We're gonna look at this system. We're gonna look at the thing that we're doing together, and we're gonna make some improvements on it. We're gonna tweak the thing a little bit. We're gonna kind of have a meeting and discuss like how it went and how we could do things better, because we should be always improving ourselves as leaders, investing in ourselves, but also improving the people around us and the things that we work on together.
That's so good. That's so good. So those are that's the language that leaders don't speak. So let's talk about some ways that a leader does speak. A leader speaks vision.
Yes.
That's their language right there.
Yes.
If there's a problem, vision rises up, and then
Yeah.
you start explaining, well, this is why it can be different.
Yes.
So I see this problem. It's not like we're delusional and we're in denial that there's a problem, but a leader practices vision.
Yes.
And the way that they say it, that they're always dripping vision here and there, and that when someone is bringing a problem to the table, that they can bring vision language right then and there, so it can challenge and inspire people, might push them a little outside of their comfort zone,
Yes.
but it's so good. And that's what a leader does. A leader also will speak ideas. So I know that sometimes people get overwhelmed by big mountainous projects, and, oh, you want me to do this? I can't do this. Why would I be in charge of this? You're the leader, and we need to speak some ideas. Well, what do you think about this? Have you tried this yet? And maybe just bringing that creative breath into that, and that conversation can really help inspire people, and to really plant those seeds of, oh, maybe I could do this.
Yes.
Maybe something that they would have never entertained before. Now they're actually mulling it over in their brain, and they're thinking, I might be able to bring the change that
That's
needs to
good.
happen. And lastly, a leader speaks encouragement.
Yes.
That's something that we should always be consistently letting pour out, is who am I encouraging, and encouraging people's hearts and their souls, and helping them, because we're all fighting this thing called life, where we can get discouraged so quickly, because as much as we're working, as hard as we're working, I know all of us still feel like, well, I'm failing here, and here. Oh,
Yeah.
this is still not working. This is not growing. I've poured all my heart into this, and it's still like, it's like a little inch that moved, and it's, and so all of us need that encouragement, even to just start stepping outside of our comfort zones.
That's
and
so good.
that's the language that a leader speaks.
And gravity is just pulling on people all
Yes,
the time.
it is.
Gravity's pulling on our systems. Gravity's pulling on, there's 1,000 voices that every single person that's on our teams is always hearing, all that. And so as the leader, you've got to come in with that voice of, we can do it. We can make a difference. We can accomplish something together. Let's go. So you've just got to come in with that leadership energy, that action, that voice that just says, yes, it is that way right now, but it's not going to stay that way, because we're here and we're on the case.
And you don't have to feel bad about having that energy and saying those things. So say, for instance, you have a leader that is just not wanting to step up to the plate. They're complaining about this problem. They're complaining about that problem, but they don't want to fix it. They want you as the leader to fix it.
Yeah.
It's okay to be the leader that challenges that leader very lovingly and humbly, but letting them know, well, you can be the one.
Yes.
What are you doing? What is it? What's something that you can do to help bring that change? Because that's what true leadership does.
Yes.
It helps people from where they're at to the next place. And if we're all honest, we like our comfort zones. We like it. And so we will stop at nothing to just stay comfortable. But as leaders, if we're really going to help people grow past where they're at, we are going to have to challenge them to start doing things that scare them, do things even beyond what they think they're able to do. And that's where that encouragement steps in as well. It's like, no, you would be great at this.
Yes.
So that's something that we should always be striving for, especially when a leader is not speaking leadership language, and you're creating a culture by being that kind of leader.
I
So
love that.
are you having a culture where people people can just complain all the time and they can just stay where they're at? Or are you creating a culture where people are always feeling like, oof, if I'm not moving forward,
And if you could create that culture that, like, if people feel like complaining is something that they want to do, that they're going to be challenged to then make a difference with it, you know?
Right.
Like, don't just complain. Like, if you're saying something, if you're voicing a complaint about something you see, to me, that's a cue for a leader to call that person up to a place of leadership, to say, hey, God's given you the ability to see that what you just said. So now I'm going to challenge you to take that and turn it into a vision, recruit a team, and accomplish it together. Like, go make a difference with it.
Go make a difference. And I also want to just hone in on this idea of complaining, because I think all of us can be guilty of this if we're not careful, is retraining the way we view things, because we could complain 1,000 different things every hour because there's something that always needs to be improved. But instead of viewing it like, oh, I need to improve that's not doing good. Instead, look at the areas that it's winning and speak life into that.
That's
and
good.
Instead of using our words to bring correction or criticism, speak the language of action and just start doing, and really, really take stock at how many words come out of our mouth if it's complaining.
That's good.
That alone would help organizations tremendously if the complaining could just be brought down. Do you know what kind of place it would be if complaining can just be like, you know what I mean? And just being aware of that.
Man, that accountability for complaining is so huge, because if there's some accountability that's there, it just really helps move people forward. Man, this has been such a cool conversation. I hope that it's going to encourage the people that's out there. Hey, this is going to be our next to last episode. So next episode that comes out is our very last one of the season. We'll pick up season 2 early in 2020. But man, we hope that you have been really enjoying this like we have. Thank you so much for being here with us. As always, we love when you're sharing it with people, sharing on social media, telling others about it, watching and listening with your team together. And as always, if you got questions or comments, man, make sure you leave those for us so that we can respond back to you. Thank you so much for being a part of the conversation today. Have an amazing week.